Welcome to StabtheDragon Productions for episode number 184 as we continue studying National Bourbon Heritage Month. This unofficial holiday season is a great time to study the history and products of bourbon, America's native spirit. Last episode, we began looking at the history of this holiday and the science of whiskey. Then we conducted a one-on-one taste comparison, blind, between Jim Beam White Label and Jack Daniel's Old Number 7. Now, normally I would call Jack Daniel's by its proper designation, Tennessee whiskey, but it also meets the criteria for bourbon, and it is the most popular whiskey in America. Depends on who you survey, but some surveys have Jack is the most popular, some have Jim Beam listed, some have actually the Canadian whiskey Crown Royal listed, but nonetheless, Jack is probably the most popular whiskey from America in the world, and it meets bourbon criteria, even though it's a Tennessee whiskey. And Jack Daniels won that competition, really, but it was close. And on another day of the week, I think the Jim Beam might have won. It was that close. I used blacked out whiskey glasses, and I was able to choose which was which when I tasted them pretty easily. The taste difference is notable. I like, one of the things I like about Jim Beam is my memory of Beam was that it was a bit too thin and the flavors too faint. But in this competition, really, it came out quite well. It didn't seem too thin or faint for me at all. So that was an improvement there. I was very pleased with that. But I was pretty sure going in that, yeah, I favored Jack Daniels, and sure enough, that's how it all came out. So tonight we're going to do another taste comparison, this time with two high-end bourbons, right? Last time we did the two most popular, and they were kind of from the lower end around the, well, Jack Daniels is going to be, probably about $22 a bottle, 23. Jim Beam a little bit less, maybe 18 or 19. Well, this time we're going to do high end, right? So we're looking at Blanton's Gold. Here you go. And this little horseman on top has got the letter somewhere in here. There's a letter. You're supposed to be able to see the letter. I'm not seeing my letter. Great. I know it's there. Well, should have studied that beforehand, but at any rate, this is Blanton's Gold. Here's the box. A friend gifted this to me. He travels the world with his job. He was in Japan, where it's far easier to find the gold edition. And you can actually see the Japanese writing on the box there. But we're going to be sampling that along with the Eagle Rare. Okay, so Eagle Rare is much sought after, as is Blanton's Gold. Now, in these glasses, which are blacked out, number 1 on the bottom is going to be the Blantons, and number 2 is the Eagle Rare. Both of these come from the Buffalo Trace Distillery. And Blanton's is a single barrel, and it's aged 6 to 8 years. It's 103 proof, but the Eagle Rare is aged 10 years and comes in at 90 proof. So there's an age difference, and there's a proof difference, but there's also a mash bill difference. Blanton's is known to have the high rye mash bill, whereas Eagle Rare is known to be sweeter with the lower rye mash bill. Because that's what rye does, is it kind of tamps down on the sweetness a little bit. It increases kind of the depth and spiciness of it. And then, Blanton's is a single barrel, whereas Eagle Rare is a blend of lots and lots and lots of barrels. But they are both very hard to come by. I have never seen either of these in the wild in Fort Worth, Texas. Right? It is September here in Texas, fall, and National Bourbon Month. So we're going to get on with this competition. The appearance of these two whiskeys. You know, the black label on the Eagle Rare makes it look a little bit darker, but in actuality, I think the Blantons is darker. But let's go to the nose and see, because I don't know which whiskey's in which glass, part of the fun here is figuring out which is which. And my nose does not work very well with bourbons. I could smell almost nothing there. Nothing. So really, my nose is almost useless. I can smell some rye and I can smell some scotches. Texas whiskeys, sometimes I can smell because of the Texas funk. All right, so we're going to have to rely on the taste, the palate, mouthfeel, burn finish. So this is the glass on my left. Now I'm going to say, just going off the initial taste, I'm pretty sure that was glass number 1 and Blantons. We'll see. Glass on my right. That one seems lighter, sweeter. That's the Eagle Rare. So I'm sure that's glass number 2. And actually the Eagle Rare has a little bit more of a burn. That's weird. The Blantons is 103 proof. I'm going to say the one on the right is a little bit more burn to it. It's a little bit harsher. That's wild. Back to the one on my left. Definitely more smooth, deeper, richer flavors. I am convinced that is Blanton's. Now, if I get this wrong, this will be terribly embarrassing. But the mouthfeel on that one is a little bit more full, a little bit richer on the palate. But the one on the right, I think it's got more of a burn. See, I like the burn, right? As long as it's not the ethanol thing. But I like hot, spicy foods, and so that's one of my draws to bourbon is the harshness, the burn. A lot of people talk about how they don't like bourbon because it's so harsh. Well, conversely, I like bourbon because it's harsh. I mean, a lot of Scotch drinkers, talk about that. Well, bourbon's harsh. Come on. I've had enough single malts to know that there's a thin line of harshness going through most single malts. It's there. It's very brittle. It's thin. It's not as overwhelming as the bourbon harshness, but it's there in single malts. So, yeah, this one I'm real sure is the Eagle Rare. All right, it's time to reveal. So let's go with the one on the left is the one that I like the most, and I'm going to say it's number one. It is, in fact, number one. That is the Blantons, and this is number two, Eagle Rare. And actually, the Eagle Rare was gifted to me by the same friend who gave me the Blantons, and I think this is going to run you about $50. I'm not sure where he got this. I think he might have got this in Virginia. Pretty sure. But the Blantons I know he got in Japan. And that Blantons, that's going to run you 120 probably. You know, MSRP, pulls it down in some ways down to about 100. But good luck finding that for 100, even in Japan. So, that's going to be pretty expensive. But yeah, I like the high rye mash bill is the deal with me, and I've noticed that about other bourbons. So like the regular Buffalo Trace, which might have been a mistake, but I had a glass of that before this competition. That resembles Eagle Rare. It's 90 proof as well, but it's not a 10 years. See, this is 10 years, and so it's richer. But that mash bill makes it very sweet. Whereas the high rye mash bill and the blends is really what I like. And other whiskeys, I've noticed that if I get a little bit more rye, if I get more of a wood barrel note to a whiskey, that tends to be my favorite. The super sweet stuff, like Buffalo Trace, Old Forester is an example, Benchmark is an example. That stuff is not going to be my favorite. So I'm going to like Old Grandad. That's a good example. Knob Creek. That's a good example. Elijah Craig. Those whiskeys, even Woodford Reserve, those a little bit sweet. It still has a little bit of barrel going on there. Those are where I tend to go. So I'm going to give taste and palate, mouthfeel to the Blantons. But the burn and finish, yeah, that's going to go with Eagle Rare. I think it had a little bit stronger finish as well. Price and availability. Well, Eagle Rare is going to win on price, but both of them are just not available. I mean, here in Fort Worth, good luck. I think there's some stores that have allocated stuff once in a while that you can get these at, but I've never seen them in the wild. So that's where I come out with these two highly sought after, expensive bourbons in the National Bourbon Heritage Month competition. All right, well, that does it for Stab the Dragon on this Monday, 16th of September, 2024, National Bourbon Heritage Month. Out here.